Hey everyone, this is Brian Evans from BobbyandBrian.com and the Tech Sales Show. Thanks so much for joining. This is a video follow-up to episode 1 of Impeccable Meeting Preparation. In the first episode, we talked about being prepared with a company's background financial information. So we talked about it briefly as we walked through it on the episode, but we also wanted to share a video just showing you kind of click by click how to get there. For those of you that are deep into financials, you'll know all this. For those of you that haven't messed much with it, then hopefully this is educating. If at any point you want to see anything deeper, shoot us a note at BobbyandBrian.com and we'll be happy to do so. So we're going to look at two companies, Southwest Airlines and Box.net. Southwest Airlines is a regional airline company out of the U.S., if you're not familiar with them, and Box.net is a cloud storage company, cloud productivity company. Both of them are somewhat different in terms of their financial view, so I'm gonna give you a couple of examples here, and then we'll look at the Box.net's annual report as well. So we'll start with Southwest Airlines, and their symbol is LUV, L-U-V, or you could have searched for Southwest Airlines. Either one would have worked. So the market's closed right now. You can see here that they closed at $64.32. This defaults to kind of a very short-term view of their stock history. So I always bump this out to 6 months, 5 years, and the max period of time, which goes back to when they went public, which was, it looks like in the late 70s. So quite a history for Southwest Airlines, and you can see a massive growth from effectively, under $1 a share to over $60 per share. So quite a bit of growth over the years. That's the first thing I'm looking at. The second bit of information I'm looking at is basically their competitors in the market. And this is, the related companies is kind of a guess on Google's part. So they do this for any publicly traded company. In the case of Southwest Airlines, it's a little bit more straightforward because they're only being compared against other airlines. The big piece I'm looking for here, because I've already seen the trend of their share price. But what I want to look at now is their market cap, and think of market cap as the value of their company. It's effectively a simple measurement. It's the total number of shares times the share price. So in the case of Southwest Airlines, they're a $38 billion company. They're the big guys in the industry. You can see that Delta Airlines is right there with them at a nearly $40 billion market capitalization. So it just gives you a feel for the size of these types of companies and who they're up against. So if you're meeting with JetBlue, they're probably a challenger in the industry. A misnomer when people are looking at a stock price is they'll see a really high stock price. Like let's take Allegiant Travel. And their share price is $149 per share. It's a lot like the Mexican peso. I think it's currently at like 20 to 1 for the US dollar. That doesn't mean the Mexican peso is worth 20 times more than $1. It's just more about supply in the market. And that the same is true for Allegiant Travel. Their share price is $149 per share, but their market cap's only $2.5 billion. So they're a much smaller company relative to Southwest Airlines, despite the stock price being higher. So again, Southwest Airlines is a much more valuable company in terms of overall market cap and worth, for that matter, too. The next thing I'm looking at is the news section. This is hit or miss. I would still use Google to search for recent articles on the company, but you can get some good information from here sometimes. For example, the Stock News Journal is not anything interesting, probably. It's more spammy than anything else. But an interesting one here is Reuters. So it mentions here that Southwest employees are going to get a tax bonus. So probably a good article to review before you go meet with them. So that's it for the front page. What I look at past the front page is the financial section. So in the financial section, I always flip it over to annual data first. You get a much better perspective on the company's performance over time. You can see here that Southwest Airlines has grown over time from a $17 billion a year. This is annual revenue per year. So they started off at $17 billion 4 years ago, and they've grown all the way to $20 billion in 4 years here. So a pretty constant growth. That's the first piece I'm looking at if I'm just doing a quick overview. The next piece I'm looking at is net income. So you can see it's listed here. And 4 years ago, net income was $754 million. It's grown substantially. So why? Why has it grown substantially? It'd be worth reading their annual report. Is it fuel prices? Is it efficiencies in other places they've been able to do to get here? You'll only know that by reviewing the financial statement deeper and then looking at their annual report. But it's good to note, if you're just doing a quick overview of the company, that revenues are growing and profits growing. So great company here. The second one we're going to look at is Box. And as I mentioned before, Box is a cloud storage company, cloud productivity company. And their share price is at $21.45 at the moment. We'll flip it out to 1 year, 5 year, look at it over the full time they've been publicly traded. They're a much newer cloud company. They've been publicly traded now for just a few years. You can see their stock price when they IPO'd is about the same as it is today, actually maybe a little lower. So they've had some ups and downs as a company. If you look at the related companies, this is where it's a little bit more iffy. Box is compared here against Microsoft, Alphabet. Alphabet's effectively Google. Adobe, Citrix, IBM, Salesforce. These are all tech companies, of course, but they don't do exactly what Box does. So when you look at their market cap, they're being compared against some companies that are substantially larger. Microsoft does have a cloud storage and cloud productivity product that is much bigger, same as Google. So these are viable competitors, and they're definitely the David and Goliath scenario here. So they're a very small company fighting a kind of the big companies in the marketplace. It's important to know as you go in to meet with a company like this. The second piece here I talked about, the news. That's just some basic information about Box. We'll jump right into financials there on the left side. And in financials, I'll flip it again to annual data. You can see here that they've had substantial growth over the past few years. So let's see, in 2014, they were a $124 million company. This is all in millions. And they're now a $400 million company. So good revenue growth. What's interesting here too, if you look at net income, so they're not profitable. So you can see the negatives here. What you'd want to know as a seller or a person that's just up to date on this prospect, this company, is that last year they did $300 million in total revenue, and they lost $200 million. But this most recent year, they made nearly $400 million, and they only lost $151 million. So that would suggest, if you research cloud companies, that would suggest that they're starting to do some things right. They're losing less money and increasing their revenues. So they're been able to scale their business. Why? How? You'd only know that by reviewing the annual report. So let's take a really high look at that. We're not going to solve all those problems or questions today. Flip over to my next window, and what I did is a basic search here for BoxNet annual report. The second listing here I'll have a look at is the Box Investor Relations site. I've already launched it in a separate window. And you can see their third quarter FY18 financial results. A lot of these tech companies will post some really nice presentations outside of just the standard reports. There's a number of reports that they publicly traded companies list. They list quarterly earnings reports in a presentation and an annual report. For just time's sake, we're going to look at the quarterly report for Q3 for them. And I've launched this presentation in another window here. And it's a nice PowerPoint deck. You can right off the bat get some really good data here. So we're like 3 or 4 slides in. You can see they've highlighted their problem statements that they're looking to solve for prospective customers. They perform digital, or what they're suggesting here is that digital transformation is pressuring every organization. So that's kind of the problem statement they're making. The next slide is basically how they look to solve that digital transformation challenge that companies are facing. So there's a kind of a overview of their product offering. The next slide is looks like they're talking here about being able to integrate with multiple applications. Maybe your company is one of those. Maybe you do business with a company that they integrate with. All of that would be good and important to know. They've got a number of use cases for content management that they highlight here. This is a great slide. So here they give kind of a financial overview. So you can see here, this is exactly what we saw in the financial statements. They list here, they have 80,000 paying customers, 67% are Fortune 500. That's great to know, great information. You can see here they're looking to expand internationally or continue to grow internationally. Talks about their alliances with Google, IBM, and Microsoft. The fact that they, as of Q3, has 1,700 employees. This stuff is not stuff you're just going to find on their website. You got to dig in a little bit. So this is a great example of a very good report for you to have a look at. Here's a list of some of their customers. Maybe you share customers with them, and you'd want to, introduce a reference that they also do business with. So anyhow, this is a great overview of Box and kind of their financial statement. As I mentioned, every company is different. Reading their financial statements different. If you've got any questions or want to reach out to us and get our assessment on one of them, don't hesitate to do that. We'll dive deeper in later. And again, this is just kind of one dimension. This is kind of the financial viewpoint of a company when you're doing research. So have a listen to episode 1 of series 1, Impeccable Meeting Preparation. If you haven't already, take a listen. Give us any feedback. Thanks so much. Don't forget to subscribe to our email list and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Bobby Bryan Sales. Thanks so much. Bye.